Nahaganesinga. Welcome back, everyone, to Rising Warriors Rachael Kulei. And today I have my beautiful sister back with us, Dr. Sherrie Davis, and we are going to be talking about taking your power back. And so we've been talking about this, and there's so many different levels of taking your power back. We could go into relationships, you could go into your, taking your health back, and we'll talk about that too. Taking power back with tradition or your culture, your heritage, taking power back in your voice. There's so many different things that we're going to touch on, but I'm excited to talk on today because this is such a big, I guess, topic in a sense. And both Sherrie and I have our own clients that we've both been helping, and helping them along the lines of taking their power back. And both of us have gone through toxic relationships and marriages, and going from having our lives and pursuing our dreams and our passions, to going to losing things in sense, but fighting for them, and having to take our power back. And for me, I was thinking about earlier, I was like, well, actually, to be honest, so I've been divorced for about 4 years, and I'm still fighting to take my power back from all of the abuse that I went through for 8 years. And then if you want to take toxic relationships for a total of like 17, 18 years, then, I was thinking about it today. I'm still fighting to take my power back. And so I brought Sherrie on because we've been talking about this and helping our clients. And so I wanted to bring her on to talk about, taking your power back. What is that? What does that look like? And there's so many different realms that, of that, what that means of taking your power back. So welcome, and go ahead and just take it away.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Rachel, for having me back again.
Yeah.
It's always good to do this and see everybody out there, and hopefully, getting the education on things and tools that they can use in their everyday life too.
Right.
Which is so important as we all go through transitions that we're going through now in this day and age, and all the separations and things that are happening. And so I find that too, even with that said, people going through these transition and diversities, where do we find our place in today's society?
Right.
Do we feel lost, or do we feel like we're outsourced, or feeling like, not fitting in quite well, which can also make you feel like you're kind of in a place where, you can feel a little bit lost. And so when you think about like what Rachel was saying, so many things where we can lose our way, and even lose our own little bit of it, our identity, when it comes to toxic relationships, we kind of lose our way there. And really, it's about who we are, as an individual. So many people, men and women both, can lose their physical identity in a toxic situation, right? Whether it's a family situation or it's a toxic relationship. And often when I counsel men and women, and they're going through, toxic relationship issues, I'll find that one of the individuals, or even both, in some cases, but it's a majority of one person, will completely lose who they are in that relationship. And all their power is kind of stripped away from them. They lose their identity in that relationship, or they lose a little piece of themselves in there, and their self-control, being able to control what they truly want and who they are. Often our goals can be kind of stripped away from us because that other person is telling you, no, I'm not going to help you with that, or no, you shouldn't do that. Or it's always the no answer to your goal, because they're not living in the same mindset as you are. And so that's just another way that says, here, I'm going to take this little piece away from you because I'm not interested in it. So I'm not going to let you be either. And so, and that happens so often in, toxic relationships, with couples that have an individual who is like that, or controlling. And so when I see couples that have a controlling partner that's either narcissistic or they have these controlling jealousy tendencies, that individual gets trapped in this identity issue where they are confused about who they are anymore, or what path are they to take in their own individual life. It's almost like their identity gets stolen away from them in a way. And that's where the power issue starts coming in. Like, who's really in control here? Are you in control of yourself and your identity, who you are as a person, your goals and life aspirations? There's all those things that are so important to who we are as an individual. And so even work relationships, sometimes you can have people, and I'll hear this quite often, oh, my coworker says not to do this or do that, well, why do you listen to that if it's not on the same path as what you believe in? If it's a good advice, okay, maybe take it, right? But if it's really not good advice, I always say, don't listen to people who always make multiple mistakes in their own life, right? They don't make good decisions, because if they can't make good decisions for themselves, how are they going to make a good decision for you?
Right.
And I find that in relationship issues as well. I was just to tell my ex, why would I listen to your advice when you're the person of bad advice? That always takes me down the wrong track, and I was like, no, that's not the direction I'm going, and so why take that bad advice, right? And so, or I call it useless advice, useless information. And so anyway, because it's not really benefiting anyone when it is like that. And that's where the power stuff comes into play. And when we talk about power and taking back our power, it's really about taking back who we are as an individual, our own identity, our own path, our own goals, things that we want to achieve in life. Some people tell me, I don't know what my goal is. Well, create a goal. What is it that you strive to have or do in your life, right? And not allow someone else to control it or tell you can't have it or can't do it, especially if it's a good thing, that helps you grow, or helps you expand in your life in some way. And so, because it's always good to have those positive, healthy goals, to achieve and do, because what it do, it motivates us. Just like our music, what does our music do for us, Rachel? It gives us aspiration. It gives us motivation. It gives us that sense of excitement. But again, as an artist, that's who we are, right? Artists often too can be kind of played by an individual they may be in a relationship with, and they'll always cut them down or say, oh, I hate that song, or maybe it's their music style or whatever. But if they're not living in the same creative mindset as you are, then it doesn't really mesh very well, and then they want to take that away from you, and not let you do it, when actually a creative person really, really needs that creative outlet, because it's part of your soul. It's part of who you are as an individual. It's just your DNA makeup, it's just who you are. And so even the, many genres of artistry, and I think I was telling your mom this the other day, I go, if she didn't have her art and we didn't have our art, we'd be lost in that little tiny piece of identity of who we really are as an individual and a person. We'd feel like there's something just not there, right, that needs to be fulfilled. And so as an artist, it's really that creative, positive outlet that not only you fulfill for yourself, but you can also share with others for enjoyment, that is a positive, atmosphere. And it provides that for everybody. You ever notice how music lifts your soul up and your energy? If it's a really positive song and it just feels good and that vibration is amazing, not like this, yelling, screaming stuff that you go, oh my gosh, what was that, a train wreck? Because it's like makes your energy feel like it's a little bit unbalanced,
Right.
or it's just not there. It's not correct. And so, but music really does play a big part in everyone's life. Everybody loves music of some kind. It's just listening to the right kind. You
Right.
know? And
Right.
so, but we have some great Indigenous rappers that I love listening to that are absolutely amazing in their inspiration of their words, because words really play a big part of how we feel and how we motivate each other, and even part of taking our power back, right?
Right.
Because words are so essential to our daily life, how people speak to you, how people talk to you or make you feel like you should think one way and not the other. um, I've had some learning lessons through this whole COVID thing about, who do I really like, friends that I've had for years, who do I really trust on that platform? Because
Mm-hmm.
again, friendship can take away that little piece of you, if they aren't living in the same mindset as you are. They may say, oh, that doesn't exist, or they're acting like they don't believe what you said when you have the education and the knowledge, and they don't. And so, and that can be disheartening. And again, it can be another way to strip away your power, your own self, your identity, by somebody telling you that's not true, or I don't believe you, or some sort of disheartening word. Words are so important to who we are mentally and physically, and just how we react in our everyday life, and just live, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's really about part of our power. It's about, being able to be around people that are motivating, and someone who, what I call have your back, right?
Right.
And because when somebody takes away your power, it's can be like, like I'm always dealing with this with my mom, for instance. I'll give you an example where she believes everything her doctors say, not to eat healthy vegetables and fruits, which are nutritional to your body. But, oh yeah, you can go have that cupcake every day, and that ice cream is going to cause you pain and make you sick. Okay, why would you believe that? And then every day you continue being sick because you're believing what that doctor just told you, when you didn't research it and go out and make sure, is that really good for me? Is that really what my physical soul and mindset is telling myself?
Mm-hmm.
Is that really a good way to be? And so, like, I'm always battling with that with my mom. It's like, why do you give your power away to people who abuse you? No, why do you give your, emotional, mental self away to negative people? And then let that person upset you or create a, unbalanced energy in her everyday life. And
Mm-hmm.
even with her doctor stuff, I swear she goes to more doctors than I know anybody in the whole universe goes to. Right. And
Right.
I said, and I'm trying to tell her, and this makes so much sense. It's like another way of taking away your power.
Mm-hmm.
Your health is so important. And if you're not getting a solution to your health and you continue staying stuck, or you're getting worse, then stop doing what you're doing and find a solution that works for you,
Mm-hmm.
that helps you to get healthier, that helps you to, get back into that energetic self again, that person that you were before you got sick.
Right.
And so I find that with my mom constantly, but she's 80 years old. So what do you do at that age? They get stuck in their mindset, right? They refuse to
Mm-hmm.
change it. Absolutely. Because they get so stubborn up here, where they refuse to listen to what the truth is of what they really need to hear, what they
Right.
really need to know.
Well, and
And
I
so,
experienced that too. Sorry, but
yeah,
I just
go
heard to
ahead.
share this real quick is that with,
Mm,
through my cancer journey, you've been
yeah.
helping me through this, and but with the
Hmm.
doctors, so I hear,
Yeah.
well, how can you take your power back with doctors? Well, okay, how I've had to do that with my,
Hmm.
as
Yeah.
my experiences, I had to do my research. I had to stay firm in, what my beliefs are and what I really
Yeah.
felt that I needed with my body. And then I had you and then some other,
Hmm.
holistic healers that were working with me that were all saying in and in tune with my body and what I was feeling and what I was seeing with my body. So then when I went to the Western medicine doctor, I kept saying, okay, this is wrong. This is wrong. And then it was you that, said, because I couldn't get them to check the right cancer marker. And so we found it was the CA-125. And so remember, I just kept pushing and pushing. I need to get this cancer marker, and they wouldn't do it. So I went to a naturopath, and I finally got the naturopath doctor to do the blood work, remember?
Right.
And then I came back and the cancer marker was extremely high. So then I finally went back to the doctor, and I was like, see, I told you I have cancer. And it took I think 6 months or 3 to 6 months or something for the doctors to finally listen to me and go oh, she doesn't have a drug addiction problem, because how skinny I was, they thought I had a drug addiction problem, which I never did. And so they were testing me for so many different things. And it was I kept having to prove them wrong of whatever they thought that was wrong with me, until finally I got the right help. But I had to search for it, and I had to really pray too, to know, okay, where do I go to get this help, to find these people that know what's going on a holistic side that can help me, because I didn't want to go through radiation and chemo. So finally, over time, now I've created this relationship with my doctor where I'm like, okay, this is what's wrong with me. This is it. This is what. And now, because of the persistency that I've done, and, the homework I've done, and, me really doing my diligent work for my health and really holding the reins in my health, now the doctors listen to me. So it takes time, but it is possible. So, there is that set that people go through. Well, I can't fight with the doctor, or the doctor's not going to listen to me. Well, no, they do. You just have to do your work, and you have to constantly be coming up with your thing and your information and your homework, and do your work. And so it's same thing with my fiance, with type 1 diabetes. He's constantly with his doctor, hey, there's this, hey, there's something new, hey, they've got this, and, and she's like, what? I didn't even know these things were and he's like, no, it's so, but he does his work. And so, it is possible. You have to,
you have to
research. And so we were talking about that earlier, and I like that someone just posted, they're not gods. And you just said that earlier, because you're like, well, my mom, what'd you say? You're like, my mom just thinks the doctors are like these gods. And but they're not.
No. And nobody is, it's I even tell my patients, I want you to go out and research this stuff that I'm giving you, so that you have the knowledge to take back that power over your health, to mentally and physically align with what's right for you. Even if I give that patient advice on things that I feel like, okay, here, you've got this deficiency, or you've got this, I'll send them over to their practitioner and get the blood work done. And then that'll come back on the lab, right? And then we can start treating the proper issues that are there. But again, it's just another way of yourself really doing the research and learning how to also talk to the doctors, because you really have to learn their language, right? How do you get them to do the things that you need to do, the proper tests or the exams or the x-rays or whatever it is, to get them to understand that there's a whole nother genre that needs to be looked at, because sometimes there can be things that are missed. And, I'll get a lot of patients that get misdiagnosed, with conditions. When I get done doing the kinesiology and the muscle testing, and then send them in for the proper lab work, then there it is. It's like the fact of, oh, wow, here's the truth of what really is happening. Now I can take my power back in my own mental and physical self, because now I know what's really wrong and how to treat it. And I would say 99% of disease is a nutritional deficiency or a virus. And really, if you look at the issues that are going on, even in today's world, you've got to look at other alternatives that are so important to treating the body holistically and physically, mentally and emotionally, and even spiritually in some ways, so that you aren't lost in that society or feeling like you're just drowning in it and don't even know who you are anymore. And so, or what direction to take in our life. It's really about finding a even balance amongst everything, whether it's coworkers, friends, family, whatever, spouses. But also we have to learn how to communicate better too. So communication is so key to that, because when we let other people make our decisions for us and those decisions aren't good for us, that's where we lose our power. That's where we lose our identity. And then all of a sudden we keep listening to the bad advice, right? Until one day we fall off that curb and realize, oh, I've been following this bad advice my whole life or half my life, or in this toxic relationship or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
Instead of really listening to our own intuition and our own mindset and soul of what's really right, for you as an individual. It's so important. It's like, we were talking about earlier, people that get kind of, drowned in certain situations where they just feel like they have no goals or aspirations, for themselves. And it's so important to have that individual goal and identity, because you don't always want to just be about everyone else, right? You have to be about yourself at some point too. And so, because after a while, you get physically and emotionally drained if you don't take time for yourself or do things for yourself or create those life goals for yourself. It's like our new life goal. What is it? We're going to create this beautiful new album and we're going to submit it to all these music awards. That's a great goal to have, wouldn't you say?
Yep. I'm excited.
Right. And put that out there and let everybody. Yeah,
too.
it is. Real quick too,
We're working on an album, you guys.
You'll love the music. Beautiful pieces, and Rachel's an amazing artist too.
Yeah.
And so, and it really is about creating your circle of things that really help you with your identity, that help you with your goal, your path, taking back your power. Part of that taking back your power is really, finding your circle of things that make you happy, that help you grow and expand in your life, really, and really kind of, keep that higher vibrational energy alive instead of letting people drain you. Sometimes people that are really negative, they just bring you down and you're constantly thinking of these negative things, right? And then it makes you kind of lost or blocked to what you need to do in your own life, instead of, listening to what that other person is programming you to believe. And so it's really about conditional programming, right? If you think about it, how are we conditioned? And sometimes even growing up, we're conditioned in households that, some households are pretty positive to grow up in. If you have good parents that have really great goals for themselves and they want their children to succeed, and they lift them up and they give them ideas and they help them with their goal and they help guide them, as that, parent would. But then we've had, I know I didn't exactly grow up in the best goal mindseted parent household. And so there's a lot of those kids that grow up in those types of families. And what do? They get lost, or they end up doing drugs, or they end up in prison, and they have no goals. They have no identity, right? Because they really never was taught anything in those younger years. So it's really important, even with our children, that we, teach them those positive things, help them grow or help them expand and find themselves as they're growing. Because as teenagers, they're still trying to figure out who they are. They're still trying to figure out life, and even younger kids, 9, 10 years old, And so they really need that, whether it's a parent guidance, a mentor, an auntie, or uncle, and even cousins, right? That help each other expand and grow in their life. It could be outside of that, or a friend. I would say growing up that, my guidance and people were friends that I had, that their parents had, really great, households, and they would teach their kids how to be successful, and give them goals and give them projects to do. Because I think anymore nowadays that the kids are so lost in social media stuff that, the parents work too much and they don't really give their kids projects anymore. No, or they don't give their kids something to work on that's going to help them grow and expand and find their identity, who they are as an individual. And so it's so important, because even that, it's trying to find your power, right? Trying to take back your power, but find it as well.
Right.
I would say that a lot of the women that I've counseled, that they were in toxic or abusive relationships, after a while, they had no goals, they had no aspirations, and they had no inspiration. Right. And so, it was so sad. So their power was kind of stripped away, who they were. And before this relationship, they were positive mindseted. They had goals. They had things they wanted to achieve, and all that stripped away from them, when they're in that toxic environment. And even men can have that happen as well. So it's not just women that it happens to, but, because I've counseled men that was also happening too. And so it's kind of an interesting concept when you look at how, our power gets so stripped away by, situations that we're living under or we're living in. Right. And, or even work environments being controlled and not really being allowed to have your opinion or your identity, even opinions. Yeah, your voice. Yeah, you got to have your voice, right? Because if you don't, and that voice, you need to learn how to communicate, like we were saying with your doctor, learn how to communicate with the doctor so that you can get what you want out of that visit, right? Learn to educate yourself on really what's happening with your body or emotion or whatever it is, because we can get very unbalanced. And I call it, falling off the railroad track, right? We really kind of get lost and not on our path anymore.
Yeah, I noticed that too, because when I was at the beginning, when I was working with my doctor and I was emotional with my things, it was very hard to communicate with her. But the moment that I cut the emotion out of there and I was just very cut, clear, like black and white, then it was like, boom, I could connect with her on a whole nother level. And I like kind of left the emotions at the door. And I was like, all right, this is what it is. This, da, 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 da. All right, what do we do? How do we move forward instead of, being in tears or, and it was like, I had to change that mindset too of like, you know what? I'm back on the horse. I got bucked off, but I'm back on, and no, let's do this. Like we're going to keep going. And so like, right. You just have to keep going, but you really have to find your voice. And that's a part of it. You lose your voice when you're in those toxic relationships too. And even like with me, with my previous marriage, I went from, I was a huge entrepreneur. I was an influencer. I was acting. I was making music. I was performing in a dance company. I was in Broadway, and I was doing all of these things. And over time, it was like, one by one, every little thing that I was doing disappeared. And then I stopped teaching, and then I stopped dancing. And then like bones were broken in my body to actually prevent me from dancing. And so it was like, and then I got cancer. And so it was just like one thing after another for me, that it was just like, I lost my voice, and I stopped modeling. I stopped doing everything that I was doing prior. But then the moment that I was, I submitted those divorce papers, and then I was just like, you know what, I'm taking my life back.
Mhm.
And so then I started
Yeah.
modeling again. I started dancing again.
Mhm.
I started taking all of these things back,
Yeah.
and dreaming again. And for me, I
Right.
had to go back to my childlike mind
Mm.
where I dreamt,
Mhm.
where I was always dreaming of what I wanted to be in the future. And so I had to go back to that childlike mind and sit there and go, okay, what did I want to be in the future? Because when I was 3 years
Yeah.
old, I already knew I wanted to be a professional ballet dancer. I already knew I wanted
Mm.
to be a professional artist and musician and an actor and all these things. And I knew that at 3 years old. So for me, I had to go back to that childlike mind and really start dreaming again. And that's when I started like making dream boards too. So I started
Mm.
cutting out magazines, and I got a big poster board and just started like a house, or, I wanted land, or I want, certain little things and
Mm.
whatnot. And I just started dreaming and putting it on this board. And just by seeing these things, and just even just looking at magazines and just rethinking and just dreaming, even if maybe
Mhm.
it might never happen, but still just like dreaming and just opening that mind back up again of like it's a
Mhm.
possibility and you can make it happen. You can
Mhm.
manifest so
Yeah.
many things, right?
True, true. Yeah. I was, for instance, when I counsel patients that have, either drug or alcohol addictions, what does it do? It takes their power away, right? It takes
Hmm.
away their goals and that positive mindset and their energy where they really want to be in life, instead of steals that life away. And so usually what I'll have them do is write down, on one sheet, I'll have them write down all these things that are about this addiction or things that, why they self sabotage and things that they want to release and get rid of. And then I'll
Hmm.
have them take all those things, whether they're triggers, anxiety, depression, addiction, self sabotage, um, anxiety, all the different things that are contributed to the condition. I don't really like calling alcoholism or drug addiction a disease.
Right.
I like to be able to just kind of identify with it as, you've had a trauma in your life that has now contributed to this, issue that you chose, to do, because it's
Hmm.
basically a self uh, coping and self-medicating mechanism that happens when a person has been traumatized in some form or way.
Right.
And then they go to that, unfortunately, in some cases, not everybody, but there's those few individuals that do, and
Hmm.
again, it takes away their power, it takes away their identity, it takes away that positive energy and mindset, because now they have nothing else but that and to live for, basically.
Hmm.
And so, but then I have them write down these things that, whether it's the trauma or it's the anxiety, the depression, the disease of it, which is the self-sabotaging, or, the emotional destruction that we do sometimes to ourselves, and identify with it, but also allow your consciousness to say, I no longer need, want, or desire to continue those patterns, and to allow and give yourself permission to release it and let it go and move past it and jump over those obstacles, right? And then
Hmm.
after I have them write all this stuff down, I have them do a burning ceremony of that paper and release it. And then on the other paper, they're going to write down goals. Sometimes I'll even make a goal chart for them. Here's your chart. I want you to, come up with, what does that new goal, that new life look like for you? Because those goals that you map out for yourself really teaches you to take back your power. It teaches you how to kind of relive your life, really, because sometimes we get so lost and we forget about those things that we loved, that made us happy, or things that we used to do or loved to do, and we no longer are doing it. Now you can
Hmm.
restructure that, bring some of that back into your life. That, things like art, for instance, or, going out with the friends, taking little trips somewhere, whatever it is, just kind of bringing back those little things that make your circle with, your life pattern kind of back into that piece of happiness and purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have them write that down. And too, I did a class on when we could have group gatherings, and our women of intuitive wisdom meeting on creating goals, and we each had a little goal board, and we would create things on there that we wanted to do in our life and create our goals. Some of them wanted to create businesses. They wanted to start a business. Some of them wanted to go to a trip to Spain or England or somewhere else, somewhere exotic or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And some of them just wanted to, have a little more money in their pockets, right? Be a little bit more successful in some way. But it's really about creating that goal to get there and taking the steps to do it, and being able to educate yourself so that you can do it, and being able to create those little steps to where you can create those goals.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would say that 90% of the class really did end up achieving and creating the goals that they had put on their boards. And later on, when they looked at it a year later, they were like, oh my gosh, I've pretty much completed everything that was on my goal board. And they didn't even realize they did,
Uh-huh.
Isn't that funny? And
Uh-huh.
so really, it's really about kind of, that's part of also of taking back your power, take back your identity, and creating those positives in your life that make you feel good, but also, helps not just yourself, but maybe it helps somebody else as well, like volunteering somewhere. That also helps you to kind of take back your power, but also give back to the community as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I often volunteer playing my music for nonprofits and places that want to raise money for their homeless projects, or, feeding children or whatever it is in our local communities, because it's another way to not only be that positive derivative of our community, but also being able to provide something to inspire someone else,
Right.
so, and being that inspiration. It's so important, amongst our kids, our peers, people that we surround ourselves in our circle. And so it's really about knowing who you are and being okay with who you are as well, finding your confidence, right?
Right.
Sometimes we lose our confidence.
Especially in this world, because it's like everybody has this like stick figure, like you're supposed to fit in the box. But me, I've always
Yeah.
been the opposite. I'm like, I don't want to fit in the box. I don't want to be like everybody else. And so I'm always the opposite as everyone
Yeah.
else. But
Yeah.
I'm okay with that. And I love being my authentic self and not like everyone else. And it's okay,
Mm-hmm.
but like you were just saying, you have to have the
Mm-hmm.
confidence to actually like get out of your shell. And you know what, if you feel like dancing on the street and there's no music, dance on the street with no music. I do it all the time, and I don't care if people are staring at me or not. But you know what, maybe made somebody laugh that was just driving by, or smile that was having a really bad day.
Right. Right.
There's so many things. It's like everybody's like so afraid,
Yeah.
to not fit in or not be liked. And it's like, who
Yeah.
cares? Just
True.
be yourself. At the end of the day, you're with yourself and you're with you. And, love yourself. And do you love yourself? Do you love who you are?
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is like, I had to look at myself too. Was like, at one point, I didn't like who I was because of not being me anymore. I literally
Mhm.
lost who I was. Even my family, my mom's like telling me, Rachel, you're not the happy person that you used to be. You don't give hugs. People, I'm the biggest like bear hugger ever. I love giving everyone hugs. But then over time, I stopped giving people hugs. And so then people started even realizing, like, what's going on? Like, you're not
Yeah.
hugging, like, you're not loving like you used to. Like, what's going on with you, sister? And I'm just like in my own shell. Like, I don't know if I'm going to get in trouble for hugging you. So, hey, what's up? but over time again, it's just like I got back into that, and it's like, you know what, just come give me a hug. I don't know, no, with how the world is,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
we don't know how, if today's our last day, tomorrow's the last day. You never know when you're gonna see someone. So it's just like I'm always just embrace, but that was part of me. It was taking
Mhm.
that power back, and taking
Yeah.
that love that I have, the bear hugs, and just embracing people and just making people laugh, because that's what I do. I love making people laugh, and I stopped doing it that at one
True.
point, but now now I just make everybody laugh. I make myself laugh. I can be by myself, but that's part of me. And that was part of something that I had to work on to take my power back and to get back out of my shell. And, a big thing, like for me too, is doing this podcast. It was like a month
Yeah.
ago, my ex actually like reached out. He must be watching the podcast or something, but he reached out and started gaslighting me and started doing all of these things that he used to do that used to work and would make me like shut down. But for a brief moment in time,
Mhm.
I did was like I almost went to that full place of where he took my power back, and I had to fight it. I was like, no, I'm going to keep going. No, I'm gonna keep doing this. No, like I know I'm supposed to be doing this. You're not gonna sabotage this. You're not gonna sabotage my podcast. Like I'm not listening to you. I'm not listening to you. And so, but even then, it was like he snuck in
Yeah.
again, and because that was part of the thing, is he didn't want me sharing my voice.
Mm.
He doesn't want me sharing my story. He doesn't want me sharing my trauma and the things that I had to go through. So that's another thing, is like, even every time I get back on this podcast, that's even more of me taking that power back and my voice back, because I'm not allowing the abuser to still abuse
Mhm.
and make me a victim anymore. And so
Mhm.
this is a big thing for me, because there's always, that one person that's sitting back there that's trying to sabotage everything, and it's like his life mission or something to like take me down.
Mhm.
But at the same
Yeah.
time, I'm not allowing it to happen. But I could
Mhm.
easily have completely canceled the podcast, stopped the podcast completely after he did what he did, and just been like, you know what, I can't do this. Like, if this is the energy I have to deal with from my ex-husband, then I'm done with this. But you know what, I fought through it, and
Mhm.
here we are, still going. But that was a huge thing for me that I had to like fight through, and because he was trying to take my voice again. And
Oh,
I'm like,
yeah, for sure.
I've been working on, cutting these cords and getting that voice back. So I was like, no, exactly, John, he lost control, so he's freaking out.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
because
That's
that's what they
true.
do, right?
It's very true, because you don't ever wanna give someone control over you, because once that starts happening, you start to lose a little bit of your own self, your own identity, your identity. And but it's so true, like he was saying, don't ever let your power be stolen or used or abused in some way. Have your voice. Everybody needs a voice, right? We all need our own opinion, and use it constructively and in a positive way. But there's not a lot of people do. So like people that are very inspirational, there's always going to be those haters out there. You just can't listen to the haters, because if you do, that's where you get lost.
Mm-hmm.
And then you end up becoming demotivated on your path. You all of a sudden, lose that interest because you listen to, the attacks or the things that they do to try to demotivate you along your path, or that, your path of being motivated on what your goal is or who you are. I swear, if I had listened to people when I started my practice, or even with my music, I probably wouldn't have done it, because they were
Right.
trying to demotivate me. And I'd be like, nope, you're not on the same path or life that I'm on. So I'm not listening to you. I'm going to go do what I love to do, right? Not
Right.
let somebody steal it away from you.
Uh-huh.
And I think if I had allowed that, or I like calling it really giving them permission to steal it from you,
Right.
right? not let you have what you want to be happy in your life. And, of course, you always want to have those things to be constructive and positive, and not negatives, because that isn't going to get anywhere in a good way. And so, really, not letting people take that little piece of power or from you, like with you, Rachel, not letting him come back in and stealing that little piece of happiness and that identity of you, right? Because it's really part of you, who you are as that motivational, positive person. And if you were to allow or give that permission to him to take that from you, then it's taking your power away. It's taking a little piece away of you, and then it demotivates or creates a negativity. But then you can become depressed or kick yourself for saying, why did I listen to that? Or why didn't I move forward with my goal? Or, things that you really want to achieve, because that happens so often with people, and they really, just need to strive for things that they feel positive about. I remember, was it last year, I reconnected with a high school girlfriend that her and I were in theatrics and voice class and music class. Growing up, we were both artists. We took all kinds of art classes. Now, mind you, we were the shy girls. We were shy and we were geeky. We really didn't fit in. We never felt like we fit in. And she was even shyer than I was. I didn't even think there could be that. And one day when she reached out on me on Facebook, and she had moved back here from Alaska, and I couldn't find her. I didn't know where she went. And she finally finds me through the class page and all that. And she said, and she happened to achieve her goal, because in high school, I kept telling her, even though we were the shy, geeky kids that really didn't have a purpose, because we were living in abusive homes, and we really didn't know what our purpose was. We really kind of were lost. And so we were trying to find our way. And through our friendship, we were able to find our way. We were able to achieve even that little tiny percentage of the goal, even in adulthood many years later. But when she contacted me, she goes, I never got to tell you this, but when you pulled me up on stage and we were up there in our acting class and you told me that I had to come up on stage and sing this song with you, I was so nervous and I didn't want to do it. But you were so positive and motivational about it and saying, no, we're going to be a team. This is going to be great, and she was shyer than me and I was really shy and up there shaking, thinking, oh my gosh, am I going to be able to do this, right? And so anyway, and then our music teacher played the piano for us, and so I think back in the 80s, Bette Midler's song, The Rose, was really popular. So we were singing that song, right? And when she contacted me, she was like, I became a really famous news anchor in Alaska. And then she moved back here and she goes, if it wasn't for your inspiration and you telling me not to listen to the people who are not on the same mindset as we are and don't have these creative abilities to be able to aspire and inspire others with that gift, and to be able to listen to ourselves, and not always listen to the naysayers or the people who are jealous or the people who don't really want you to succeed. And so that's what both of us dealt with that in our personal life, in our home lives, all that. Our parents didn't want us to succeed because they didn't, right? They didn't have any aspirations or goals or, path things that could inspire them. So why inspire their children? We were both in an abusive household. And so anyway, but if it wasn't for those types of friendships, I don't think we really would have achieved the things that we did in life, and the things that we did in adulthood, where we go back and go, well, even if I didn't create that in my younger life, I can still do it today in my adult life, because now I don't have these negative parents or whoever, abusers over here telling me I can't do it, or I'm too stupid to do it, or I'm not smart enough to do it. Right. So often you'll get people like that. They're that they are abusers that want to hold you back and take your power back, take your power away, and they'll tell you those kind of things. So then after a while, what happens? It conditions you to believe it, right? When really that's not you. That's them. They're just putting their garbage onto you. And so you really have to not listen to that. You really have to be able to say, no, I'm an individual with a different goal, a different mindset, a different path, and not be on their path if it doesn't serve a really positive, healthy purpose for you. But yeah, that gal, it was so interesting. I never knew all these years way back from high school that I had inspired somebody to go and become a famous newscaster in Alaska. And now she lives up here in Washington State. Isn't that funny?
That's
I don't even know what she's doing now, but we did music together and we had art classes together and we took theatric classes together and dancing and everything else, that had to do with the arts. And, but yeah, I think that when you have that individual, even if it's just a friend, that inspires you, and sometimes you don't even know that you could have inspired someone else. Like I didn't know that gal was inspired by what I was telling her. And I really kind of was trying to find my own way, as a child or teenager, trying to figure it out. I was just having fun and wanting to enjoy what I was doing in the arts and the music and, the theatrical classes, the acting classes, and just kind of having a good time with it and trying to figure out my own path and direction with it. But she actually went on to become a famous newscast person, news anchor.
I love that.
It's so that was kind of cool. That was such a beautiful thing to know that she actually, grew and expanded her life. And finally, when she left home and was able to leave that toxic environment that she was under, that she was able to grow and become what she truly, truly wanted to be, and really strive for that. And just that one little thing helped her get there. And it was just because I pulled her up on stage and said, no, come on, we're going to go do these things together and inspire, right? And I would have never thought, even as a kid, I was so shy. I really didn't even think about, when you talk to others, really it's the words. What are you saying? Remember even in high school, there was this one kid where he was kind of geeky and really a loner, right? So a lot of kids picked on him and he got bullied. And one day these girls, these cheerleader girls that were part of the school newspaper, and I'm come walking along and here comes this kid starting to walk towards me. And they come to me and say, oh, we want you to be in the newspaper as the biggest loser. And, and I was like, what? I was like, sorry. And I went off on him. I did. I was like, that's inappropriate. And I will never be the biggest loser, not for you or anyone else. I'll be more successful than you ever will be. And it's because I was shy and I didn't really have too many friends. I didn't hang out with the cheerleaders. I didn't hang out with the athletes. I was a shy, geeky person. So here comes this kid that's more geekier than I was, right? And shyer than I was. And so they talked him into doing the picture and being the biggest loser thing, under their category. And I told him, I said, don't you ever, ever let anybody ever put you down that way or put you in a category that you're not, just because you're different, right? And just because maybe you don't fit in their society or their circle, it doesn't mean you're a loser at all. And so it were those kind of things that I started finding even in myself as a child, and growing up as a teenager, dealing with those types of situations. And I was really shy. So I kind of didn't speak up for myself until about that junior year or whatever. And then I started finding my voice. And that senior year, and I didn't let the kids bully me anymore, and I didn't let the kids do those kind of things. So even in society as adulthood, we still have bullies today, even in adulthood. We still do, and so it's really about taking your power back, standing your ground against them so that they know they can't take that power away from you. they can't bully you or they can't put you in this negative position. And
Mm-hmm.
so even that kid, I was like, don't you ever let anybody call you a loser or put you in that category or make you feel lesser of,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because it still happens today with adults, making other people make you feel that way. And so that's where your power can really be stripped away when that happens.
It's so true
And
because
so,
I had
mhm,
I was actually the one that I popped around from group to group to group to group, but I was
mm,
always the one that stuck up for the underdog. And so
yeah,
I always ended up I don't know
yeah,
I don't know how, but I just went from every group to every group, but I always ended up I think it's
yeah.
probably because my uncle has cerebral palsy, and so I always
Mm.
ended up more being with like the special needs and just kind of I ended up
Oh,
being more
yeah.
like the protector. And so I
Mm,
ended up like always like being the one that beat up the other people that were picking on, the
yeah.
special needs. And but I have this one friend, we still talk to this day. His name's Johnny, and he's autistic. And ever since he was in high school, I think he was like 2 grades or a grade under me. But and I was friends with his older sister, but I always just protected him. And it was like he knew like if anything were to happen to him or anything, he always would come to me and go, Rachel, like, so and so did this or so and so da da da
Oh,
da,
yeah.
and then I'd go over there and I'd
Oh,
get right on them. And so it ended up we still talk, and I think it was like 3 years ago he ended up moving to New York, and I think he's moving back here in the next
wow.
month or so. But he came back and visited, and we went
Mm.
to a movie, and he ended up forgetting his wallet at the movie theater, and his mom
Oh,
only
no.
allowed him to have his debit card, not his ID, because he tends to lose his ID. And so she was like, "You're not having
Mm.
your ID." And even though he's 21, but still at that time he was about 21, but he is still in the mindset of maybe like 17 years old, 18 years old, or
Oh, yeah.
no, 14. So
Sure.
he'd like
Mhm.
go back and forth. But anyways, we leave and we went to go get ice cream, and he went to pull out his ID or his card to pay, and it wasn't there anymore. He didn't have it. And I
Oh,
was like, okay,
no.
where was like we'll go back to the movie theater. And so I was like, okay, just call them, say you're Johnny, tell them your name, and we were in this theater watching this movie, and you left and we were in this row, everything. And sure enough, they went to the seat, they found his card, and we're like, okay, we'll be right there.
Oh.
Well, when we got there, I asked him, I said, well, do you want me to go in there with
Mhm.
you? And he said no. He goes, I'll be okay. And so I was like, all right. So I let him go into the theater, and 5 minutes goes by, and I'm like, this is too long. It said it probably was shorter than 5 minutes, but it seemed like it was like forever that he was in there. And I'm
Mm.
like, this is too long for him to be in there by himself. And so finally I'm like, something's off. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm going to go in there. So I went in there, and even though that was him, he had called, he had confirmed, he gave them the name and everything. Because he was autistic, they were
Mm.
giving him a hard time. And
Wow.
so it was like, so I
Mm.
ended up going in there and having to get on them about, how dare you treat him this way? And we called and you said, and how else would he know that this person's debit card is here if we just called and he's
Right.
the person? And how would he know that his ID is lost? Give him his
Yeah.
ID, or I mean his card, give it to him.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so then we leave, and he's just so shook up. And finally, and I'm like,
Oh,
do I need to
no.
go talk to the manager? I'm like, I will shut them down. I will tell them how they treated you and everything. He's like, no, it's okay.
Oh,
But I'm like, Johnny, I was like, I've always protected you, and I will always protect
yeah.
you. And I will not allow these adults to still bully you, even though we're, adults. I'm like, you're not
Yeah, yeah.
doing this. And so I think it was there, like, we realized that even though like 15 years had gone by, it was like we still, still knew that Rachel is going to be there to help me and, have my voice. And so it was like what you're saying
Yeah.
is like, sometimes we have to help others be the voice to help them get that
Mhm.
strength to be their voice and to take their
Yes.
voice.
Yeah, it's so true. Yeah, you do. And inspire them, show them that they don't have to put up with that, and that isn't the way that they should be treated, and like that kid, it's so sad, how autistic kids will, get bullied, or they'll have, a little bit harder life dealing with things, because people will judge them or they'll treat them different. And,
Hmm.
and they're probably some of the nicest people you could ever meet, the biggest heart, and that it's just teaching them that they don't deserve that, and that they don't deserve to be allowed to have someone treat them differently or mistreat them in a way. And
Hmm.
so that's true. And teach them how to stand their ground and take their power back, right?
Right.
And their identity and who they are, and not allow that type of abuse, because it's just another form of abuse.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, it's so
Love that.
true. Yeah.
Well, do you have anything that you would like to say before we wrap this up in little words of encouragement, inspiration?
For sure. Yeah, definitely. Create that goal board. I think we all kind of like anymore nowadays, it's like we need to create goals, and people have lost a lot, this past year. And so we really have to analyze and rewrap our life up into a whole totally different mindset, but also creating goals that you want to do for yourself, or even to help inspire others, and see that, hey, we don't have to live in a society that conditions us to kind of be downplayed, or to feel in a negative mindset. We can still live in a positive, healthy way, physically, emotionally, mentally, and even spiritually. It's like, sometimes people will lose that little soul piece of themselves, right?
Right.
During negative times. And so it's really finding that center of yourself and being able to be inspired. I always say inspire yourself first, because then you'll be able to inspire others. Sometimes we forget that part of it. And so that's why I always enjoy being able, like with my music, to be able to inspire others to do that, or to be able to go out and help them realize that, hey, come over here, you can create this and record that and submit it to this music awards, so that you can be a part of that circle of your, musical world, and to achieve and aspire it. And but with anything, whether you want to create a new business or create something that brings you prosperity in some way, write down that goal, create that goal board this year, and find your inspiration within yourself, that really serves yourself. I was telling my son the other day, because he just found out that his girlfriend cheated on him of 2 years, kind of, and she was kind of a toxic person anyway. So,
Hmm.
and I was like, well, I told him, I said, well, Kevin, now it's time to focus on you. Stop focusing on others. Time to find your goal and your purpose within yourself, right? And
Hmm.
not this other person that's going to drag you down into their drama and their pit hole of negativity. Instead, now bring yourself up to a really positive, healthy, inspiring self. I know that it's a hurtful thing when somebody does that to you, and when you're emotionally and physically invested, it really kind of takes a little bit of yourself away. And but then you've got to look at what can you do to inspire yourself and bring your power back, and see that, hey, you have a circle of people that will help you along that inspirational path as well, whether it's
Hmm.
family or friends or even coworkers in some way.
Hmm. Have to
So
look for
create
them.
that goal. Yeah, create that goal.
Do it. Create your
That's a
goals.
good one
I'm
to have.
constantly creating
That's
goals.
right. We want to hear it. We want to hear it. We want to see what your goals are.
Me?
You know, yeah,
Oh,
everybody.
me? Oh,
Yeah,
everybody. Yep. Put your goals down.
yeah. Put your goals down. We want to see how you achieve it too. Create your
Right.
steps, how you're going to do it, and just inspire yourself. Really
Hmm.
helps.
Start dreaming again. And that's
Yes.
what I do. And you know what?
Yeah.
I always too is like, even if it's something that you've never done before, you're never too old to try something new.
True.
Challenge yourself. Just because you didn't do something when you were younger or you didn't learn it when you were
Yeah.
younger doesn't mean you can't go and do classes or go back to school. There's so many, like my mom is a professor, and so she has students that are in
True.
their 80s, going back to school. And so you're never too old to relearn or learn something and to keep dreaming. So keep
Yeah.
dreaming, everybody. Write your goals down and dream on. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you, and we'll see you next week. Oos.